we will have another interesting discussion on alleviating pain and suffering with care and communication, where we will discuss how pain management and palliative care has been playing a pivotal role while undergoing chemotherapy during cancer treatment. With this, let me introduce the second speaker of the session as well, Dr. Sushma Bhatnagar, Professor and Head, Department of Oncoanesthesia, Pain and Palliative Care at AIIMS, who would be sharing her experience on how care and empathic communication can help patients sail through the tough and depressing chemotherapy. So, Dr. Sushma, what is the palliative care? To know the first, what is the term palliative care defines itself, and how does it help cancer patient in their treatment?
So palliative care is basically a care. Palliate means giving a relief to a patient whom we have considered that patient is cannot be cured,
Mm-hmm.
or a patient giving a total care to the patient when cure is possible. But for example, a lady has come with carcinoma breast. We know that treatment is possible, surgery can be done, and she can be cured, but she has got a lot of anxiety, a lot of worry. So taking care of all those anxiety with good communication is palliative care in early stage. Palliative care in the treatment stage, when treatment is going on, there are a lot of side effects, lot of anxiety about the treatment part, because there are the side effects of the treatment, and there are so many questions inside that whether it will be cured or not. So taking care of that part by good communication, taking care of those all the basically total care in the treatment part. And when the end stage comes, that time not leaving the patient deserted, rather there is something we can do for those patients also in terms of taking care of their symptoms. Because ultimately, even if a patient is in towards the advanced stage or in the end of life stage, that time also there are many things which doctor and nurses can do. And all these things, taking care of all those symptoms, taking care of all those anxiety of the patient, is palliative care. And it is not only finishes that taking care of the patient, but it also extends towards the family members, because whenever a patient is suffering, the whole family is suffering. If a patient is in pain and cannot sleep whole night, whole family is awake and they cannot sleep whole night. So taking care of family members anxiety, how they can take care, again good communication. What they want to know, what is happening to my patient, what exactly the situation, what is the stage of my patient's disease, my loved one disease, and what is the realistic hope possible. Because taking asking them or telling them that you will be all right, don't worry, it does not work, because they are also understanding that my patient is going down day by day, it is the health condition is deteriorating. So it is better to give the realistic hope of the treatment, that what is happening, or realistic hope of the disease. Giving exact prognostication is always not possible, but always giving realistic hope is possible. Always taking care of symptoms, it is possible that patient should be pain free, patient should not be restless, patient should be symptom free. This is what palliative care is. Palliative care is somehow in the medical science, it does not only finishes over here. Even the after death, that is called bereavement care. This is also when a patient has gone, the loved one has gone, there are so many things initially, especially in the 6 months of initial period. the, the relatives keep thinking, I wish I would have done this, I wish I would have done this, whether I have done something wrong which has taken him early. This is all they keep on thinking, and there is sometimes grief is so bad, it becomes a complicated grief. But good communication, proper counseling, giving realistic hope and honest opinion makes this also very very easy and tolerable and simple. So this is what palliative care, right from the diagnosis to treatment, end of life, and then bereavement, taking care of the patient throughout the illness by giving good symptom management, by giving good counseling, and by taking care of all physical symptoms which patient is suffering from.
Thank you, Dr. Sushma. And now I would like to, request my team to plug in the presentation of Dr. Sushma before we move ahead on the next question. So team, can you please plug in the presentation of Dr. Sushma?
So I will finish my presentation early, so then whatever questions you have out of
Yes.
presentation, you can ask.
Yes, yes, true.
Ma'am, you can share the presentation. I've given you the access.
Okay. So where it is? I can't see Mani. Mani, I can't see the. This is our shared screen. Okay. Oh, I can't see. Mani, I can't see the presentation.
This is your desktop window. You need to first open the presentation. Yes, click on that.
Otherwise, you can ask me other question. I can answer your questions. Other
Sure.
like, okay.
So moving. Yes,
yeah.
yes. So moving on the second question of the discussion, palliative care requires a constant communication with the patient and their families to keep them motivated in their fight against cancer. In this situation, where face-to-face communication is difficult, how do you manage to keep the patients positive and motivated? What do you think about evolving role of palliative cares in times of COVID?
So these are two questions. First is how to keep a patient motivated in any of the disease, and then how to take care of patient in the COVID situation.
True.
So first question I will answer first. So for example, if a patient is suffering from any chronic debilitating condition, it can be cancer, it can be chronic heart disease, it can be chronic lung disease, or it can be chronic kidney disease, whichever is possible, whichever is in this case, how to keep a patient positive. So whenever there is something wrong happens in anybody's life, especially in terms of patient's life, there is always something we can do for the patient. Patients are very, very brave. They understand that something has happened which is not very good for them in their life. They just want to know that what best can be done. So as soon as you explain them the what best can be done in terms of pain management, in terms of symptom management, in terms of their finance management, in terms of their taking care of their all the worries and all. So once you will take care of that, then I think they become very positive. And second positive thing which patient always like, that their doctor and their nurses, they don't, because we should not say that okay, ghar chale jao, we cannot do anything. This nobody likes. Patient is going to go home. Only thing they want to be very, 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 very affirmative that my doctor is with me. We should not desert our patient. That is what patient wants to live. Even if you are dying, or even if you are at the end of life, we are not going to desert you. We are going to take care of you in whichever circumstances you are. We will take care of you even till end of the life. This is what patient wants to hear from a doctor. Now in COVID situation, we think that COVID 90% patients are asymptomatic or mildly symptomatic. But what I have seen after looking after the patients at National Cancer Institute, Jhajjar, that even a patient who is having mild symptom and moderate symptoms, we need treatment. But even a mild patient, they are very sick. You know what the sickness is? Three things they are bothered about. They are bothered about loneliness because they are alone. They are bothered about isolation because nobody wants to go in front in their room. And even if a doctor and nurses are coming, they are coming with PPEs. So they feel guilty. Something has happened on me. That's why the people are not coming to me. So fear, isolation, and third thing is, which very, very troublesome for the patient, is stigma. Stigma means they are suffering with highly contagious disease. This is the biggest stigma in their own mind. So this stigma, a healthcare professional can remove. Even the society can help in this, because I have seen my patients, those who are going home, they are calling me back and they are saying that their employer is not ready to take them back, because they still feel that even if they are negative, COVID negative, they are still afraid of keeping them. People told me that when I go to take the vegetables outside, when I am buying the vegetables, nobody comes near to me and everybody goes away from me. So a patient of COVID, nobody wants to talk to them, nobody wants to go to them. So this is such a big stigma. So these three things we have to take care, again by educating society, again by good communication, having empathy. Nobody wants sympathy, they want empathy. And by also explaining to the patient that this is not something which is your fault, because patient start thinking what I have done, must have done something wrong in my past, that's why this has happened. Even the cancer patient many a times ask me that why this has happened. I have never taken any cigarette, I have never taken alcohol, why this has happened. Similarly, COVID patient starts thinking why this has happened to me. So these are spiritual questions, these are spiritual pain which patients are suffering, and we have to explain in a very empathetic way. This is what a healthcare professional, whether it is doctor or a nurse, they can do and make a difference in patient's life.
Mhm. So we have certainly seen patients suffering from hepatitis or other viral diseases. People generally keep a distance from patients who are suffering from viral diseases, and we can certainly understand the pain of a patient who has gone with COVID-19 infection and has came out of that as a winner. So to my viewers, I would like to request that we are going through this pandemic, but we need to be empathetic with the patients, keep the precautions ready, keep the guidelines, follow the guidelines, but yes, feel the pain of the patient or a winner who has come out of the COVID-19 infection as well. Coming to since we had a talk about COVID-19 era where we are seeing a lot of telemedicine into picture now, and I'm sure this must be evolving at your field as well. So this brings to my third question of the session: what do you see is the role of telemedicine or consultation through the telephonic mode in palliative care? How effective it can be, and where do we stand as a, if we talk about overall health ecosystem and palliative care through telemedicine?
Oh, it's a fantastic question. Actually, since the lockdown, uh, we have we have seen thousands of patients through telemedicine. But we have analyzed 600 of our patients, those we have seen through WhatsApp calls. So I want to tell you three things in this. First thing, that in All India Institute of Medical Sciences, cancer pain management, we never stopped. We were doing cancer pain management through telephonic calls. We were doing cancer pain management through WhatsApp calls, and we were calling our patient physically if they want to procure medication which are not available in the market. So we were continuing to seeing this, because cancer pain will not we cannot give excuse to cancer pain that because pandemic and patient can suffer. They need medication. If patient is having pain is constant and he needs medication. So we have done cancer pain management through telemedicine. Second thing, which very important, which we have done through telemedicine or through telephonic call, is end of life care at home. Most of the time when a patient is dying, otherwise it is a human nature and it's a reflex that we run to the hospital. But if we will explain to the patients and their relatives that end is near, it may come any day, and this is the way we have to manage at home, whether in terms of pain, and if the patient is breathless or patient is having fluid in the abdomen, this is the way you have to manage at home. I'm telling you, the relatives or a wife or a husband of the patient, they become doctor and a nurse for the patient, and they learn everything and they learn very correctly. So we have to make them understand that this is the way you have to give medication. And we have given even an end of life consultation through telephonically, and I'm telling you that again, I am a very patient centric person, and patients are very brave. They understand, they realize that this is the way I have to manage. They don't want to run to the hospital, because in these days, because of COVID, patients are not coming, but otherwise also we explain to our patient that it is not, Because you, me, and everyone in the world, if somebody asks us that where do you want to die, we always will say that I want to die with my loved ones. But most of the time, 99% of the time, we are dying in ICU or in the hospital or in the nursing homes or in some hospice or somewhere away from our relatives. So nobody wants to die at like this. So through telemedicine, we have also provided end of life consultation. So we have provided symptom management, we have provided end of life consultation, and we have not deprived a single patient, those who was in our follow up, to give uh, our treatment plan or our management plan, whether it is through telemedicine or whether it is through physical consultation.
So where once we are talking about your consultation on palliative care, so you are certainly giving your time to patient, consulting them either through phone or WhatsApp or physically if it is possible. I believe there is lot of role of family members to it as well. Once your consultation is done, family members has to take forward those consultation with the patients. So what is exact role do you see of family members in the cancer care for any patient?
Family meetings and family members are the most important part. Basically, whenever there is I think it's not the cancer, it is always any disease. We
True.
should make a team. We should make a team. And
Mhm.
this team should consist of a doctor, patient, and family member minimum, and then multidisciplinary team, nurses, and if patient is admitted, then rehabilitation person and all. But the minimum people, those who are required in a team, is doctor, the doctor, patients, and family members. Most of the time, you must have seen that we have realized that a patient comes and husband comes and say that please don't tell my wife, she will not be able to tolerate it. So we says that yes, we will not tell today, but we should tell them. So we should make a team, because otherwise, if you will not tell them the truth to your wife, then you will talk to your mother or your father about the disease, and in the separate room, and the wife will have a something, she will feel that there is something conspiracy going on, and this is called conspiracy of silence. Patient will be not be very happy, patient will not be comfortable, and she will keep thinking that something is happening. So it is always better that family member should be their team part. We should explain about the disease, we should explain the status of the disease, we should explain what is the realistic treatment possible for the patient. Then only I think we can succeed, and we can have a true, total, and holistic care of the patient. Till the time we will not take the family members in the confidence or as a team member, then nobody will be, because otherwise it is always a doctor governed treatment. It is not just not possible. We should make a team, and family members are the integral part of any team when it comes to the cancer pain management and otherwise also.
So we had covered various aspects of palliative care, how palliative care is contributing in the life of patient, and it is probably alleviating pain and distressing patient and allowing him or motivating him to undergo the therapy. So while going through this journey, you must have felt there must be some misconception about palliative care. So what are those common misconceptions about
So
palliative care
the
which you feel?
very important question you are asking. So the biggest misconception about palliative care is people think that palliative care is end of life care. This
Mhm.
is not correct.
Mhm.
Palliative care is not end of life care, that when patient is dying, you just send to the patient to the palliative care. This makes it very difficult for the patient as well as for the treating physician. So
Mhm.
at AIMS, what we have done, I will give an example so that you will have a very good idea that how palliative care can start from the beginning. So
True.
at AIMS, as soon as a patient, for example, a cancer patient, breast patient, she has got a metastatic bone disease,
Mhm.
the oncologist starts sending this patient to palliative care clinic.
Mhm.
Our pain clinic, they start sending. So it is not that patient is not going to be treated by oncologist. They are
Mhm.
going to treat patient through the chemotherapy or radiotherapy. But even a palliative care physician, the patient is start seeing, we start explaining about the disease. If patient has got pain, we start treating pain. If patient has got myalgia or weakness, we start taking care of that. And patient start believing that this doctor is also part of my treatment. So
Mhm.
as the disease will progress, the oncology treatment will reduce and the palliative care team will take the lead. So, but patient will not feel that somebody has dumped me,
Mhm.
because as such, because as soon as you will tell palliative care, patient start thinking that, oh, they have sent me to the palliative care, this means I am going to die. So
Mhm.
this concept will not come. They know from long time, since last 5 years, this doctor is also part of my disease, and they start believing that now the role of chemotherapy is less. That's why the palliative care team is looking after me more. And till the end, both the physician, they keep meeting to the patient, and patient start believing that two doctors are looking after me. So this is the way it is called continuum of care. So
Mhm.
the the misconception that palliative care should be provided only at end of life, we should remove this misconception. If there is we need palliative care in continuum of care, and there are good robust evidence all over the world. Now
Mhm.
there are good literature. This is the early integration of palliative care improves quality of life, and sometimes when quality of life is more, it has certain advantage in terms of quantity of life, because quantity is important. Everybody, we know that we want to survive for 60, 70, 80, 90, 100 years, but nobody wants to survive at the cost of quality of life.
True.
You must have seen that our ancestor or my dadi or my nani, they used to say, Bhagwan mujhko chalte firte utha lena, because
Mhm.
everybody wants that they should live till the time they can do their own activity. They are not dependent on others. They are not bedridden, and the children, they are leaving their job and they are looking after. No parents like. So
Mhm.
quantity of life is important, but not at the cost of quality of life. Palliative care also explain this, and it helps in the treatment plan of oncologists as well as physicians, that how we can improve quality of life of a patient when quantity, we know that it is already compromised and patient is not going to survive for a long time.
Mhm. And while we see a lot of specialities in the medical sciences, we know that what is motivating someone to become a gynecologist or an oncologist. But I would like to know from my expert that what has motivated you to become a palliative care expert.
So actually, Vikanand, I am basically an anesthesiologist.
Mm-hmm.
When I joined cancer hospital,
Mm-hmm.
I I used to sit in the pain clinic, because anesthesiologist by default, because you are an anesthetist, you are automatically a pain physician. We
Mm-hmm.
used to take care of pain patients, and when we started seeing pain patients in pain cancer hospital, what I have realized that there are multiple problems patients are suffering with beside cancer pain, and simultaneously that time in India palliative care was developing slowly, and
Mm-hmm.
it was taking some shape. So
Mm-hmm.
I started taking active interest. I started joining various courses, and the Professor Dr. Robert Toycross from Sobel House, Oxford, he was my teacher. I did my basic course, my advanced course in palliative care with him. Then I visited him. I started learning palliative care through books,
Mm-hmm.
by attending international conferences, and meanwhile the India was also developing. And then in 2009 we did the annual conference of palliative care in AIMS, New Delhi. And that time I think everybody was sensitized. And then simultaneously I was rotating my resident doctors also in palliative care clinic. They started developing, and you must be surprised to know that 70% of my resident doctors, those who have come from as an anesthetist, they have chosen their career as pure palliative care physician. So they
Mm-hmm.
are working all over the country, and they are palliative medicine physician all over the country. And then we simultaneously, Medical Council of India has also recognized that time MD in palliative medicine. So we started trying that we should start MD palliative medicine. we worked very hard, and in 2013 we we started MD Palliative Medicine program in AIMS. So we have now, initially there was hesitation amongst the youngsters that whether we should take palliative medicine or not, but now it has become a very interesting branch. People are joining, residents, those who are working with us, they are finding it very interesting, giving comfort care to the patient, giving symptomatic management to the patient, good communication they are learning. And we give a lot of importance to communication, because communication at every level, at the time of diagnosis, throughout the treatment, and when patient is dying, everywhere patient has a role. And one more thing which is very important, which we have
Mhm.
learned, and I teach my resident doctors, that medical science is not only diagnosis and treatment. There is something
Mm.
else also, because when diagnosis and treatment everybody is doing, when we cannot treating patient their symptoms, and when patient is dying, this is also medical science. We should learn how we can provide dignified end to the patient, rather than just like a coward person put patients on ventilator and just run away. This is not like this. So always, if you know that putting patients on ventilator and in ICU is not going to help, explain to the patient and relatives, give symptom management, and try to, either in the hospital or at home, try to send patient at home. This is all. And by doing all these things, pain management, symptom management, end of life care, and then I started working all over country. We have started teaching many institutes now, almost 70 institute in one of the program, that is cancer treatment center program. We have already started palliative medicine program. I am also working through Indian Association of Palliative Care, because I am president, that
Mhm.
there should be uniform teaching curriculum all over the country. So all MDs, we have started IAPC Academy. So in that academy, all students and young palliative care physicians, those who wants to, already working in palliative care, they should have a good academic knowledge and recent advances. This is what we are doing in these days. Plus, I have also worked with opioid availability in the country, because it is not available throughout the country. I have to tell many things, but I know time is less. But
Sure.
so this is also how to use opioid judiciously, because in developed country there is always a opioid epidemic is going on, and people
Mhm.
think that opioids are bad, but they are essential medication in certain group of patients. So how to use it judiciously, uh, we teach our resident doctors, we teach our nurses, that when a patient is on opioid, what is their responsibility when patient is admitted in the ward and patient is on opioid. So how to use it judiciously also, it is one of our fundamental uh, training program which we give to the residents and nurses.
This brings to the end of the session now. And I'm really thankful to you, Dr. Sushma. The way you are taking care of society, we really feel proud of you and your department. You guys are really extending miles and reducing the suffering of patients. Thanks a lot for this, all you have been doing. Now, in the gratitude week, we already have, been dedicating our time, and we have been acknowledging, doctors and personalities like you, where we have literally tried to know that what all goes behind the scene.